Hi folks, this is Tom here, your frugal prepper. Um, Excuse the raspy voice, I am getting over pneumonia. And although I'm not coughing anymore and the fever's gone and I feel good, my voice has not come back yet from coughing so much my throat just got really irritated. Just a quick note is I would have been in a real bad situation and if I was in survival mode and a shit hit the fan situation, because what started out as just apparently to be a simple cold 2 days later had turned into full-blown pneumonia. And I had taken some penicillin that I had stockpiled. It didn't do anything, and I had to go to the doctor. I almost had to go to the hospital. It was real close. And they had to give me like some Levaquin, a real strong antibiotic, and steroids, and some Tussinec stuff to help break up the congestion that makes you really high. Like, there's no way you can do anything when you're on that stuff. And yeah, it was rough, and I think it probably would have been life-threatening if I hadn't had access to a doctor. So it's kind of something to think about. Anyway, this is my video on converting a natural gas stove to propane. Now, this is for a temporary like emergency situation, as in, natural gas is no longer available, and yet you want to be able to still use your stove and cook food. Now you can definitely have other options, like a camping stove and such. But I got to thinking, like, I wonder if we can convert some of our appliances over to propane, and how hard would it be to convert it and change it back, if we needed to. So the idea here is natural gas isn't available. I can quickly convert this stove, or relatively quickly, it takes an hour or so, over to propane, and I have everything I need to hook that up to propane. I can stockpile some propane because it doesn't go bad, and I'm able to use my stove. And then, I can run it on natural gas normally, because natural gas is a little bit cheaper than propane, although not much. And, I almost consider here, maybe I just get a big propane tank and switch my house over to propane, and then I can have a 200-gallon stockpile and a big tank in my backyard. So I don't have, I have more to go around. However, a big tank of propane is kind of noticeable when there's an energy crisis going on. You keep some little barbecue tanks around, and nobody has to know what's going on. So this is my stove, and it is running here on propane. I'd like to say at the beginning of this that I would recommend that you not try this unless you're 100% comfortable with it, and you need to realize that if you do this wrong, you can blow yourself up, burn your house down, kill your family. I'm not responsible. You should always consult a professional propane sales and service organization to do something like this for you. It's not something that you should probably attempt to do yourself. However, if you would just like to watch my video just for purely entertainment purposes, and I'm making no guarantees that anything here would work, you're more than welcome to watch. Alright folks, I'm going to go over just a little bit of the different things you're going to need as far as tools to convert your stove. But probably the very first thing you're going to really need to track down is you're going to have to get the model number of your stove, and you're going to have to get a propane conversion kit for it. These aren't real expensive, and they come with the different size jets and the instruction manual that you're going to need to see how your particular stove converts. My particular stove is a Frigidaire, and in the manual it also gives you all the different part numbers of all the different stoves here that it works with. But this particular kit works with Kenmore and a whole bunch of different brands. But mine's a Frigidaire, and it has the screwed in burners on the top and the non-removable top. And this also does the ones with the flip up top, and it also does the ones with like non-removable burners. And they actually give you in this kit a couple different sets of jets. Like this is the set of jets for the flip-up burner, and this is the jets that were for the one with the screwed-on burners. And then also in this bag is my 4 jets that were natural gas. So I keep that so I'll be able to convert back to natural gas. And it has the instruction manual, which basically tells you kind of step by step exactly what to do and what all the different parts are for. And the main thing you'll have to do is look at this chart to find out what size jets you're going to need based on the size that your natural gas jet was. The other thing that you're going to need to do this is going to be Teflon tape. These are for your pipe connections. And you do not want to get the kind that comes in usually a blue package and it's white. That is for water lines and air lines. This is for gas lines. This is for natural gas, propane, benzene, gasoline, and butane, any of the gas type things. And it is thicker, and you notice it kind of seals a little better, but I think even more than that is the some of the like propane and stuff can actually eat away at the white stuff and destroy the seal over time. So this costs like 50 cents more or whatever. Just make sure you pick up the yellow tape. I got this at Lowe's. You're going to need a couple of large crescent wrenches. You're probably going to need a pipe wrench. You're going to need a 7mm Deepwell socket. This is a 1/4 inch drive. You're going to want one that's small so that you can reach down into where the jets are. You are going to need a 3/16 socket. This will be for the screwed on top burner. We'll use, on mine it uses the 3/16 bolt. Some of them, especially ones in Canada, will use the square-headed screw on the burners. My stove also uses the square-headed screw to remove the plate for the bottom oven burner. This is a #1 square-headed screw. Mine came in this nifty little pack from Ryobi for my drill. Going to need a ratchet that has a 1/4 inch drive. You're going to need a cap to seal off your old natural gas line. Once you disconnect that line, you'll need to get an appropriate sized cap so that you can seal that off so that there's no chance of it leaking while you're running on propane. If you want to hook 2 propane hoses together in order to extend them, you're going to need this. This is a 3/8 inch flare to 3/8 inch FIP. Now the connector's not in here. This is just an empty bag. This is if you want to put a extended hose onto the hose off of your regulator, so that you can move the tank farther away or outside. And I'll also put in the instructions, I've lost the bag, but you're going to want to get as well a 3/8 inch flare to 1/2 inch MIP for male, and that will go right on the back of your stove to hook the propane line in. The other thing you're going to need is petroleum jelly. When you put this socket in and remove the jet, on my particular stove you can't remove the cooktop, or at least not easily. So if you unscrew this and that jet falls out while you're lifting it back up, it'll fall down inside the cooktop, which I did on my first one, and I had a double of a time having to reach down in there with one of my pickup tools trying to get it back out. So what I found is if you take and put a little bit of petroleum jelly in the end of the socket and then stick that on top of the jet, and also do that when you're putting the new jet in so it won't fall out, that'll help the jet just to stick right in the end of the socket so you don't have to risk dropping it. And then what I did is, because the petroleum jelly kind of plugs up the can plug up the end of the jet a little bit, I had one of the smaller burners that didn't just blow it out of there free, So I just hit it with a little butane torch and heated up the jet down in there, and it melted the petroleum jelly and it came right on and started working. So this is the propane tank, and yes, it's inside. I have extra hose there, and the idea is that I could drill a hole in the wall and run this outside, because this is an outside wall right here. And I have the extra hose for that, although just for testing purposes, it is just sitting inside right now. You need to put your propane tank outside. It needs to be at least, a few feet away from any opening where propane could get in, and it needs to be, away from anything electrical or ignition sources like an air conditioning unit. You should always consult your local codes and regulations for where you need to place a propane tank. Now on this one, one thing you may not realize is that you can use these older style regulators. This is actually for one of the old tanks, the non-OPD valve tank. You can tell the difference. An OPD tank has the triangular head, and the rounder star head is the older style tank. Now, the newer regulators actually have a plastic thing that screws over the top, but these are threaded and they will still work with the old regulators, so you don't have to replace your regulator if you have an old one. However, this regulator was leaking a little bit when I tested it, so I did remove these two fittings from the end of it and put some Teflon tape on there and reseal that, but we'll go through that a little bit more later on. The other thing is you're going to need to seal up your old gas line. So I put a cap over the end of it and taped it up. That way, even if your gas is off, if it does come back on, something like that, you don't have to worry about any leaks. Now, I would recommend that you put a shut-off valve in, and I probably will. My house didn't have a shut-off valve on it originally, so I had to go out and turn off my gas meter in order to put this cap on here and remove the old hose. The first step in converting your stove is going to be to find this regulator, and what you do is pull out the warmer tray on the bottom of your stove, and you have this hex nut here on top of it. When you take this off, there's a little plastic piece under there that you just flip over the other direction, and you'll follow the instructions in your conversion kit. And those instructions will kind of show you how to take that off and how to flip that over. But that changes it over to be a propane stove at that point. However, there are more modifications that you have to make because the flames will be way too high. And one of the things you have to realize is that propane has more BTUs per cubic foot than natural gas. So if you don't change things over the way they're supposed to be, you're going to have like huge flames and you're going to burn your house down. But that's the first step, is to change the regulator. And again, you want to follow the instructions in the conversion kit for your particular stove. Excuse me. The next step is you're going to need this connector right here. And this is on the back of the stove where your old gas line appliance hose used to come down to connect in here. Now, the gas line probably connected to a connector that looks like this. This part was screwed into the stove, and this part was what your gas line hooked to. You're going to remove that, and you're going to have to grab it with a pretty strong wrench on this side, because this, you can see where I kind of bent this trying to twist it off. You got to grab it with a wrench on this side, and then you got to break that loose, and that was pretty well in there. It was pretty tight. And then you put this new connector in. Now this connector is a 3/8 inch flare on this side to a I'm sorry, that's actually the wrong connector. Let me see here. That's a 1/2 inch flare to, well, I don't think that's right. Yeah, this is a 1/2 inch MIP to a 3/8 flare. So basically what you want is 1/2 inch on this side, which this is the threaded side, and that's male, to a 3/8 inch flare connection, which is what the propane hose is. Your propane hose takes a 3/8 inch flare. There seemed to be a lot of confusion about that when I was trying to find out what it is. It took me a while. Nobody seems to know, like, what kind of connector is that on the other end. It's a 3/8 flare. So basically, you put that in there. I put some of the yellow Teflon tape on there, and you're going to check that for leaks when you're all done. Now, the yellow Teflon tape always goes over your threads. It does not go inside the flare connection. The flare connection should seal up just fine without the tape. In fact, if you put tape in it, it's probably not going to seal right. And then, of course, that line runs back over to your propane tank. I leave this knob turned off when I'm not using the stove. I just turn it on when I'm using it. And this is my extension. Now, this part right here, this connector is this one right here, which is 3/8 flare to 3-inch FIP. And the FIP this is female, and this is your flare connection. And basically, the one end of your gas line will have a 3/8 MIP, which is the male. And you'll put Teflon tape on it and screw that part into this part. And then the hose from your regulator will go on here. Now, if you have a long hose on your regulator and it's long enough, you may not need to extend it. I put this extension on so that I can move this tank outside. If I ever did need to hook this up for longer than a day or two, I'm going to move that tank outside, where if there's a leak or something out there, or something goes wrong with the tank, it's out in the open air, not inside the house.